Welcome to a celebration of a whole new choral work at 40 Hertz. And this work is called Heal Me at 40 Hertz. My name is Yuval Ron. I'm the composer of the piece, and I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues, Dr. Andrew Crane, who is the choral director of the fantastic choir that recorded this work, the Brigham Young Singers, BYU Singers. Good afternoon, good evening to you, Dr. Crane. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure to be here.
Great. Also with us is Dr. Richard Gold, who is the executive producer of this album and is the president of Metta Mindfulness Music, the record company that produces many of the healing music that I compose, and is the force behind this whole operation and the vision behind it. So thank you, Dr. Richard Gold, for being with us this evening. Before we get to talk about how we worked on this unique piece, which is the world's first choral piece composed and recorded and performed in a unique musical tuning called 40 Hertz, which is really about the tuning of A equal 427.15 Hertz. And we'll talk more about it. If you have any questions, you can put your question right as a comment in the YouTube page right now as we go through this live stream. If you are watching the live version, you can ask a question through the comments, and our producer, Zach, will pick up the question and will direct the question to Dr. Crane or Dr. Gold or myself. So you'll get to talk with us. You'll get to ask questions. This is really exciting to connect with you all through this live stream. But before we start, let's watch a 6 minutes video that introduces this work and this project called Heal Me at 40 Hertz with the BYU Singers, conducted by Dr. Andrew Crane. Zach, please share with us this video. My name is Yuval Ron. I'm a composer visiting here at Brigham Young University for recording a world premiere piece that I composed to work with sound therapy called 40 Hertz. And that tone, that vibration of 40 Hertz have been shown to improve cognition in the brain, to clear the memory pathways from plaque, and improving concentration and healing from brain trauma, all kinds of health benefits. I must tell you, this is a very moving moment for me. This is the very first time that I heard anybody sing this. This is the world premiere moment for me to hear it. And just the first chord, the first measure, when you start singing, I felt my heart was just vibrating. And the way you sang it, all the dynamics and the feeling is just the way I envisioned it. singing were actually spoken by Moses when his sister Miriam was very sick. He says literally, please heal her. This first movement is not about heal me. The whole piece is called Heal Me. The second movement and the third movement are about heal me. Heal me. The first movement is about Moses saying, heal her. That's why the word la, refa na la is in Hebrew it's for her. So heal, please God, heal her. So each time you sing the na, feel this love of Moses to Miriam. When you sing Hashem, it's a substitute for the actual sound in the Bible that is written, but nobody knows how to pronounce it. And you say, instead of saying the name, you say the sacred name, which is one step removed, because saying the name itself, touching the name. So when you sing it, it has to have a meaning. It has to, it's the divine name. So I'm working with the choir recording, which is in the blue. You can see it here. And then the red is a layer of double bass section playing the frequency of 40 Hertz. You can hear it right here. That's the 40 Hertz. And so in the recording studio, I added that tone, the bass tone, together with the singers. And then we have the green layers of binaural beats, which creating a third layer of 40 Hertz in the brain. So this is the score of this piece, and after I composed it, Andy, I listened to many, many, many different choirs, and I listened to so many recordings, and I was planning first to hire some of the best singers in Los Angeles who sing for Disney and sing for all the major movie soundtracks, and people that work for me and sing on my soundtracks, and people who I worked with for years, and they are excellent, excellent singers. And I was talking with Dr. Gold about, we're going to need to hire such and such, maybe 8 musicians, 8 singers, and then have them sing it 4 times, so we'll get the size of a choir. And then I was thinking about the fact that it will never be as if we have a real choir all singing together, breathing together. And I started listening to different vocal groups from around the world on YouTube. And then I found your group, the recordings of the BYU singers. And I even heard recordings from the time that you were a singer in that group. And later on, I found out that you are now the choral director of BYU singers, but you have the honor and the privilege and the distinction of also being a singer in the past and recording. And I can tell you that the recordings and the sound and the feeling of BYU singers was standing out from the crowd. And I reached out to you through a mutual colleague, and you were on the top of my list. And I really, really hope that you would resonate with this piece. And I sent it to you, and then I heard back from you that you are interested to work with us on this piece, and this was enormous for me. And I wanted to ask you about, really honestly, I mean, I'm talking to you as a colleague and a friend, we work together, and I'm telling you, really honestly, it's hard for me to understand how a university choral group that changes members every 2 years, people leave. How can a group like this in a university maintain that standard of sound quality and feeling and soulfulness and unity? What's behind this process of the BYU singers? Why this group has this quality of sound?
Well, thanks for asking, Yuval, and thank you for inviting us to be part of this project. I remember when we first had our first Zoom meeting, it seems like it was maybe more than a year ago at this point, and just listening to what this was all about, and I was so intrigued. We'd never done anything like this. But to answer your question directly, we have around 1,000 students at BYU that sing in some kind of choir.
Mhm,
And of those 1,000, the 40 students that sang on this recording are the very cream of the crop.
mhm,
And even though they do, like you say, every year we have turnover, this is a choir that's been in existence since 1984. And like you said, I myself was a member of it. So it's a tradition that goes back many years. And so I think the students know that. And when they get accepted into the choir, they take it as a personal challenge to maintain the integrity of that tradition. They've listened to the recordings, they know what the expectation is. And so I think that's kind of how we uphold the standard.
yes. And I'm wondering, Andy, how was the process once you got the notes? You sat, I assume you sat by the piano and you played it. And then what do you do? How do you teach the choir? How do you get them to sing what the composer intended and to get it really close to what you think the composer intended?
Sure, you're absolutely right. The first thing that I did was go to the piano and play what you had written because, I get a lot of requests from composers that want the choir to perform their music. And sometimes when that happens, the music, I'll say, is more difficult than it is um enjoyable, and yours wasn't that way. It was certainly complex and sophisticated, but not something that was going to take us an inordinate amount of time to sort of take a
Mm.
bite out of and get and understand it. So once I kind of knew the level of the complexity and how long it would take us, I then planned in my calendar when we would learn it. And then seems like what we did was just we kind of divided it up into sections, and maybe on Monday we look at these 16 bars, and on Tuesday the next 16 bars, and then on Wednesday kind of put those 32 bars together, and piece by piece, little by little, we kind of worked the composition out. And I think in terms of trying to get it to sound the way you intended, you were very very meticulous in writing in dynamics and other score markings that really provided a landscape and provided a roadmap for us to follow. And so when you came to work with the choir, I think that you felt that we were already quite close to what you had envisioned simply because you marked the score so clearly.
Yes, there were very few suggestions and comments that I added in the rehearsal process, very few. I would say, 98% was there. And I really enjoyed hearing the first time, the first rehearsal. It was just marvelous. Because, unlike writing for an orchestra, where I write for instruments, if I write for strings or for piano, I can use piano digital sounds from the computer and get the computer to play back the music using digital piano samples or digital strings samples or percussion, and I can hear what my composition going to sound like with the orchestra. But with voice, yeah, you have voice samples, but they are just ah and ooh and eh and e, and you can hear your music with a computerized voice going ah e oh eh. There's no feeling, there's no humanity there. The words are not there, the dynamics are not there. You really can't hear it until you have the real singers singing it. And so when I came to the university in Utah, uh, that was really the first time that I could hear what I envision in my head. And sometimes, composers work for years refining what they hear in their head, even if, Mahler or Beethoven, I mean, these guys were giants that heard everything in their head, but they still rewrote and changed and revised. So I'm very, very happy that this piece was um, really, really accurate in as so far as what I envisioned in my head and what came out working with the real singers. Talking about working with real singers, Andy, I wanted to ask your advice for people who are listening and will be listening to this as this live stream going to be recorded and also be replayed in the future. Um, Different people already approached us and are wondering about performing this piece. We've received a call from a choir director in Africa, choir directors in the East Coast, in Europe, Israel. There's a synagogue choir that contacted me. There are church choirs. I got a call last weekend from a woman who's involved with a mosque in New York City, and she said, I feel this is important to be sang in a mosque. This is going to be healing. And I said, I was thinking about synagogues and churches because there's the Hebrew Bible lyrics here. I know it's important for the communities among the Christian communities and the Jewish communities, but I didn't think about the Muslim community for this particular piece, although the Psalms is sacred book for Islam as well. And I will be so happy to have this work being sang everywhere, in a mosque, in a Buddhist temple, everywhere. But the question is, what kind of choir could lift it up? Like how difficult it is can any community choir sing it, or do you need to be semi-pro or professional, or where is how difficult it is?
That's a great question. First of all, I'm really excited to hear that it has such wide appeal, that people are wanting to sing it. I agree that it's a piece that needs to be heard. It's a very special piece. Um, in terms of its difficulty, I would say that it needs to be kind of at an advanced high school level as a minimum. Okay. And so if your choir, first of all, you're going to have enough people in the choir to divide. I think it's in 6 parts most of the time. And so you make sure you have enough people. But if you do have enough people, and if you have people that can read music pretty well, you don't have to be amazing, but pretty well. And if you just have enough time, because some of the sonorities, the harmonies, if you're not a very advanced choir, might just take a little bit of time to get used to them. Um, oh, the other thing that I would say that's really important is that you need to have low basses that can sing a low E, and it's actually we would say that it's an E minus, a little bit lower than an E because of the 40 hertz. And even for the recording, we brought in a couple extra guys that just stood there and only sang the low E's. They didn't sing any of the rest of the piece. So I would say that it's a challenge, but it's a really rewarding challenge. And I do think that a good church choir, a good community group could make it work without too much difficulty.
Okay, that's very helpful. I'd like to segue, Andy, and to share with you and with the listeners the history of composing this piece. And we may never even share this with you, but actually, after the concert at BYU, there was one composition student that came to me after the concert and questioned and asked me, where did you get those kind of melodies? Where did you get these kind of harmonies? And I actually told him, and he got very excited about uncovering it, and he actually went on the website of Metta Mindfulness Music and he got those recordings where the materials came from into this piece. So I'd like to share this with the listener because it's kind of really interesting. This has to do with a concept that I really resonate with as a composer of being very economical in your materials. And many composers in the history had this approach that you keep recycling and keep working with the same materials in different forms. You may write something for flute and then take it to a whole symphony and then take it the same material to a string quartet and so on and so forth. Keep working with the same materials. Also in soundtracks, many composers who write for films like I do like to work with small themes that you keep repeating and recycling and reworking throughout the film. So you don't have 10 different themes that you are working with, but rather 3 themes, but you keep changing them. And that makes a certain unity to the soundtrack and a certain unity to the work. And in this case, I'd like to share with everybody my screen, and show you 2 videos that are going to demonstrate where the music came from. So this vocal work started with melodic material that I composed for another 40 Hertz album called The Healing Power of 40 Hertz Volume 2, which is all about instruments from India and Persia. And it's kind of a world music approach to 40 Hertz music. And I consulted the sitar master from India, Pandit Nayan Ghosh, about ragas, musical modes that have been used in India for generations for relaxations and for healing. Ragas, musical modes that promote healing. And he gave me 3 ragas, 3 musical modes. And I spent time with those musical modes and I came up with 3 melodies for that album. And I'll show you now a video about this album that gave me the melodic material for Heal Me at 40 Hertz. So this is a little bit from the video that presents 40 Hertz Volume 2.
Neuroscientists have established.
So I'm going back in the video. You hear now the sound of the Persian santur. This is one of the melodies that we used for Healing Powers Volume 2.
Neuroscientists have established that neurons in our brains communicated for.
This is the sitar master who introduced me to the musical ragas, musical modes that I'm using in the album. This is the Indian violin called sarangi. So This was the origin of the melodic material. And if you noticed, there is no harmony. There are no chords, there's no accompaniment, there's no orchestration. The whole music is modal, which means that it has a tone, a bass tone that is a drone of music that is holding the tonic, the main note. And then there's a melodic instruments that play the melodies, single notes that make the melodies. That is what I had in volume 2. And then after that album came out, Dr. Gold and myself discussed the idea of having a jazz piano at 40 Hertz. And instead of composing new jazz ballads for piano from scratch, I decided to use the melodies of 40 Hertz Volume 2, the world music that is based on the ancient ragas of India. And I took those melodies and I wrote some jazz harmonies, jazz chords for piano to accompany those melodies that I composed earlier in the style of Indian ragas. And so let's see a little bit of a video about the making of Volume 3 40 Hertz, which is based on jazz. So here we go. So I sat down to write a couple of jazz ballads for piano. I worked with this incredible pianist named Ruslan Sirota, who's one of the greatest jazz piano players around. And he created magic when he came to the studio and started playing this music with all this counterpoint and tenderness and embellishments. I mean, it took the music to a whole new level. And so those chords, those harmonies that the pianist Ruslan Sirota is playing were composed to accompany those melodies. And when I got to compose for the choir, I decided again, instead of starting from scratch, instead of creating a whole new work for choir, I decided to take those jazz ballads that I wrote for the piano and adapt it for voices. So the harmonies, the jazzy harmonies from the piano became the jazzy harmonies that the singers sing. But then I had to fit lyrics. So the lyrics came last. I had the melodies, I had the harmonies. I wrote it for choir. I did the adaptation from piano to choir, 5 or 6 parts harmonies. And then I looked for lyrics and I thought about healing, what kind of healing prayers or healing text I could find. And I thought about the Hebrew Bible. And Hebrew is my mother's tongue, so it was immediate for me to go and look in the Hebrew Bible for healing prayers. And I find 3 healing prayers. And these became the lyrics for the choral piece. But when I start adding the Hebrew words to the melodies that I originally composed for Indian ragas, for Indian and Persian instruments, and then became jazz piano, I had to change some of the melodies. I had to adapt the melodies to fit the Hebrew lyrics, so the language would not be contrived. So the melodies had to change in order to serve the lyrics. I were not interested in forcing the Hebrew words into the melodies that I composed earlier. I had to change the melodies to fit the lyrics. So the lyrics will feel natural. And because it's my mother's tongue, I was able to have the sensitivity for each word. Where is the accent? Where is the weight of each Hebrew word? How would it be received by Hebrew speakers? So it's not contrived, and it doesn't sound like an American composer taking Hebrew and composing music in Hebrew with no knowledge or sensitivity to that language. And so it was a really interesting process. And the piece evolved and changed because of the Hebrew prayers. The melodies started to evolve a little different, but it all originated from the first melodies that were composed in Indian ragas for healing and relaxation. So there's really three layers or three historical processes of composition and cultural depth and cultural and musical depth in this piece that it's almost hard to detect. But if you listen carefully, you will hear a little bit of the jazzy harmonies, and you will hear a little bit of the kind of Eastern melodic motifs that comes from the East. And it's all in this one work. And so I'd like to turn to Dr. Gold, who commissioned this piece and encouraged me to compose it. And Dr. Gold, I'm wondering if you could share with us, first of all, why we are working so hard, why we are spending so many resources and creativity and talent in creating a whole catalog of different musical genre that delivers 40 hertz vibration. Why 40 hertz is important, and number two, why is it important to have many different musical styles in our catalog for 40 hertz?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yuval. Before I get into that, I just want to thank Dr. Crane and his singers so very, very much. Our time in residency with you and your group at BYU was magnificent. It was heartwarming. It was filled with spiritual depth. And your singers, the maturity they show and the talent they had, and your leadership was just absolutely remarkable. And your community couldn't have been more open-hearted with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. It was a memorable time.
Kudos to you, Yuval, for your brilliance and creativity. So Yuval and I have been working together for about 14 years, creating beautiful, beautiful music, bringing ancient wisdom traditions and modern neuroscience together. And most of our emphasis over the years was to create music to go into deeper levels of meditation, going from brainwaves of beta to alpha to theta to delta. And he created beautiful music, and we're getting wonderful response. Meditation is so beneficial to the health of the brain and to the health of the soul of the person and just the spirit of life. About 4 years ago, I was introduced to the concept of gamma waves, and specifically 40 hertz, which had never crossed our radar before. I'd seen it on charts, but we were working with the meditative traditions of ancient times. And what I learned within the gamma range, which is the largest range of beats, and it ranges from 30 to 100 hertz or beats per second. It's very fast, much faster than where our brains are working at in beta right now and listening to our discussion. Research out of MIT specifically was the leading edge of this, where they were noticing that in individuals that were suffering from cognitive decline, specifically dementia and then deeper dementia to Alzheimer, that there was a lack of 40 hertz and there was a lack of gamma waves happening in the brains. And that, again, that's a wide range, but they kept looking and delineating, and they found that this absolute remarkable sweet spot exhibit at 40 hertz, which means 40 beats per second. And what's happening there is different than at 39 and at 41. And then in animal experiments primarily, and there's been some recent human studies being done, they found that exposure to 40 hertz sound and light created dramatic cognitive improvement. And then upon euthanizing the lab animals and studying their brains, they noted that the amyloid plaques and the tau proteins, which are the signal of Alzheimer's and dementia in the brain, the physical changes in the brain, that those plaques and proteins had dissipated almost to the point of disappearing. And this might sound too good to be true, but this is what was found in a scientific experiment. So now we're taking sound healing out of the realm of empiricism into hardcore analytical science. What we also discovered when Yuval and I delved into the research literature was that the sound that was being used, certainly in the animal studies and some of the preliminary human studies, was just a raw sound at 40 hertz, which, as Yuval and Andrew mentioned, is like a low E. It's like a bass drone, more or less, which is not necessarily a pleasant sound when it's on its own. And we decided, because we've been working with the concept of brain entrainment, which is to introduce certain rhythms to the brain, and the brain will begin to synchronize to this external stimuli, that if we could introduce 40 hertz within beautiful music, we could achieve a higher level of enjoyment and acceptance, and from a medical clinical point of view, compliance, meaning that people in the study or patients or just human beings would be more apt to listen to it adequately over time and during time of duration of listening and duration of days and weeks to achieve the benefit that was the potential benefit that was there.
Mm-hmm.
So with brain entrainment, you're actually introducing to the brain a consistent impulse
Yes.
to facilitate changes. So the brain will start to cycle with the dominant impulse it's being given.
I'm wondering, Dr. Gold, why is it important that we have 40 hertz music in the style of world music, like with the Indian and Persian instruments, and then with jazz, with piano and guitar, and now with choral music and different styles of music? Why is that important?
Well, again, our goal is to reach as many people as possible because whether you're aware of it in your personal life or somewhere in your family situation, there's a tidal wave of cognitive decline happening. And in order to get benefit, you have to be exposed to this 40 hertz sound or music over a period of time. And we recognize that different people have different listening pleasures. So our first album of 40 hertz is in what's considered ambient new age. It's easy listening, but it's complex and it's beautiful. And all of our musical themes are played by world-renowned acoustic musicians, except for the choral groupers as world-renowned vocal musicians. Our second album, which you've all played a sample of, is world music. I never even heard of the sarangi until a world-renowned sarangist was in LA and Yuval was able to bring him to the studio. I happen to love sitar, but sarangi and tar, the Persian instrument, that's not necessarily going to be appealing to many people. Studies have come out about the efficacy of jazz and how it's so appealing to a wide variety of populations. And jazz doesn't have to be chaotic by any means. As you see, we call this calming jazz. That album also has classical guitar, where the guitar is tuned to 40 hertz. And then in discussions with Yuval, we realized why not bring the human voice into play? Because choral music, it can touch a part of our spirit and our soul that just instrumentalists don't do. And then to have the magnificence of 40 singers, which was a wonderful coincidence, to sing this 40 hertz piece made something even more magical.
Yes.
Very soon we're going to be releasing a piece in 40 hertz of solo piano on a grand piano. So we're trying to appeal to as large an audience as possible because, again, you have to be exposing the brain over time. And the more pleasant the environment, the more enjoyable the whole experience is, you're going to get that done. So our music can be listened to just as background music because everything is composed. These albums are composed in 40 hertz. The instruments are tuned to 40 hertz. And then Yuval in the studios you saw in that introductory video, we add a layer of a drone of string basses being bowed. And then we add a third layer, which is the binaural beats.
Right.
And this is a very interesting development in sound healing and neuroscience, where you play one hertz beats in one ear and one in another, a separate one, and the difference between those, the brain modulates to that, and so we achieve 40 hertz that way.
Yes.
Binaural beats you have to use headphones to achieve, but if you're not going to use headphones with the music, you're still going to get the other two effects of 40 hertz.
Yes. Thank you. Uh, I'm wondering if anybody who is watching us have any question about all this fascinating, amazing information that we are sharing with you. Any input, any comment, please put it in the comments at the YouTube page. And Zach, our producer, already sent me a note that there's already a few questions there. So we can go to those questions, Zach, if you'd like to go, and just let us know who the question is for. Or we can take a stab at it, whoever among us that feel inclined to answer, we could just pick it up.
We have a question from Shadow Rider Record. He says, should there be any audible difference between the different mixes? Even with headphones, I'm not hearing a difference, but maybe it is sub-audible.
That's a really good question. There are 9 different mixes for Heal Me in the album. There are 3 parts. So part 1, part 2, part 3. So each part has 3 different mixes. So 3 different parts, 3 different mixes, that gives us 9 different tracks. So let's talk about those 3 different mixes. They definitely sound differently if you pay attention to the low end, to the bass. So for example, the 3 mixes of the choral only mix, you just have the choir. You don't actually have the low 40 hertz tone, and you do not have the binaural beats brain entrainment that create 40 hertz in the brain. It's just the singers, and they are in tune with 40 hertz, but there's no 40 hertz in it. If you listen to the 40 hertz bass string mixes, you would hear, if you pay attention to the low bass range, you would hear a low bass sound coming in. Each time the singers come in, there's a low hum sound, like, but it's actually a string bass playing the note 40 hertz, the actual vibration. Each time the singers come in, the note in the string basses come in, and then when the singers take a pause, the string bass player took a pause. And then when the singers take a breath, there's nothing. And then when they sing again, the string bass comes in with the low note of 40 hertz. That mix, in addition to the low bass of 40 hertz, also have, the third kind of mix has an additional layer that is subliminal, and you cannot hear it. And that is the 40 hertz binaural beats that can be detected only in the brain of the listener. And that mix has 3 layers of 40 hertz: the binaural beats, which is subliminal, the 40 hertz string bass, which you can hear, and the choir. 3 layers. So that's what we have there in the 9 different tracks. Zach, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we have a question from Peter. Peter mentioned 40 hertz sound therapy is most effective as preventative treatment. Is there any research into how long it takes before seeing results in the lab? Months? Years?
How long it takes to achieve impact? Is that the question?
Yes, how long it takes before seeing results.
Before seeing results, listening to 40 hertz.
I'll respond to that. Certainly, it depends on the degree of dementia or the degree of tau and amyloid buildup in the brain. What research has shown prior to the 40 hertz with meditation was that 40 minutes a day for 40 days, again, very interesting, this 40 number recurs, that the structure of the brain actually changes. The volume of the brain changes and the health of the brain changes. Now, the preliminary studies with 40 hertz They haven't really established a particular protocol, but a scientist named Lee Bartell, who's based both in Los Angeles at UCLA and also in Canada, there's a TED talk he gives, and he's done what I consider very minimal therapies, 2 or 3 times a week for 30 minutes and for 3 weeks. And he saw, especially like with fibromyalgia, for instance, which is a systemic pain phenomena, that people were significantly better after just 3 weeks. They were using significantly less medication, and some people were even getting off of medication. Now, there's not been, we don't have studies yet with severe Alzheimer's. I think it'd be a little bit unusual to see really any dramatic benefit there, measurable benefit there. But what scientists at MIT are recommending, their lead researchers, is to not wait till there's cognitive decline, to actually bring 40 hertz into the environment from the time of childhood even. And because what we're seeing earlier and earlier experiences of the dementia phenomena. Now, a couple of things that are really interesting to note and showing benefit for the brain is memory and recall when we study. And they've actually determined that if you play 40 hertz before you go into a study session, your memory and recall is going to be better. You don't listen to it during necessarily, but prior to. Now, 40 hertz, because of its benefit for circulation of blood and oxygen in the brain, is very, very good for helping with sleep, where the brain cleanses. But to not listen to 40 hertz while you're going to sleep or in sleep, it's not playing in the room, because that gamma is a fast beat, but to listen to it some hours before you go to sleep. So yeah, I think any of our music or any music that helps a person sleep is incredibly invaluable. Sleep is one of the most essential determinants for brain health, both for consolidating memories, for recall of memories, and cleansing of the brain. So in summation, a lot of research has to be done to come up with a model for further analytic study. But without that, just empirically, we know there's benefit for the brain. There's no toxic dose. There's no negative side effects. They've established safety at this point. And we're primarily talking about sound with 40 hertz. There's also 40 hertz lights that are being used. And there's even some high-tech devices like bicycle helmets with red infrared lights pulsing at 40 hertz. So, and there's even like water beds where they're running 40 hertz vibrations through the water so that the cells of the body are receiving 40 hertz.
Yes.
So
I think that I saw a study that came from Stanford that showed that they used 40 hertz 3 hours before sleep, and that resulted in better sleep, but 3 hours before sleep, listening to 40 hertz. And one more information that I received from a doctor in Mexico City who wrote to me about 40 hertz. He was very interested in our work, and he told me that he's treating patients that have Parkinson with 40 hertz signal, and within one treatment, there was improvement of a reduced tremor. And he developing this therapy with 40 hertz. So the field of 40 hertz medicine and therapy is expanding into many different fields of medicine. It's really fascinating to see how it's going to evolve, and we will have more and more and more data and studies and information about it, hopefully. Let's go to another question, Zach, please.
Rachel would like to know, how can someone get high-res recordings of this audio?
Okay, so let me share a screen to answer this question. If you want to get the high-quality audio, you go to one place, and that is a website called Metta Mindfulness Music, which is spelled with double T, METTA, mindfulnessmusic.com. And that is the website that I'm going to right now. And right on top, there's a circle that is labeled Brain Health. If you click on Brain Health, you can see the albums of This is Heal Me 40 Hertz. You click on it, and there's right there the setup is for high wave file. You could click on the little arrow looking down, and you can choose the low quality MP3 file, but we recommend getting the high audio because it has all the vibrations. The MP3 is a smaller file. It doesn't have all the vibrations. It's a compressed file and reduced quality. And especially for healing, vibrations, all the vibrations are very, very important. So please get the high quality wave files like it is shown here. High wave file. Those are the full quality, the full vibration, the full music, the full vibrations of 40 hertz. It's in those files. And that is not available in all the streaming services. When you listen to, if you can go to Spotify and listen to this piece, Heal Me at 40 hertz, it will do something good for you, but it's watered down. It's streaming. If you listen to it on YouTube, it's streaming MP3, which is low quality, reduced vibration file. If you listen on Amazon Music, if you listen on Apple Music, all those devices, all those platforms have only the MP3 version of this music. The only place in the world that you can get the full quality, the full vibration is in metamindfulnessmusic.com. And I wish that everybody will have the full quality, high quality audio file, but they don't. Only the record company, metamindfulnessmusic.com, is making this available. If you cannot get that, and you want to listen to it anywhere else, please do listen to it wherever it is. It's available everywhere on the internet. It's streaming on every music platform, but be aware that when you stream it, you're getting the watered down version.
And I'd like to add that if you are looking for our music on Spotify, you search under Yuval Ron's name, Yuval, last name Ron. It's not listed under Metta Mindfulness Music. It's listed under Yuval as the composer.
And you can just Google 40 Hertz Volume 1 or 40 Hertz Volume 2, 40 Hertz Volume 3. You will find it. Or you can just type in the name of the choral piece, Heal Me at 40 Hertz. If you just type in Heal Me at 40 Hertz, you will find it all over the internet. You can stream it, and you can enjoy it, share it with your friends. But I recommend that you get the full audio, which is on metamindfulnessmusic.com. Metta with double T. Zach,
certainly
we have
what we want to do with research is we want to use the highest vibrational music for any research that we're involved with.
Yeah, all the doctors that we work with, they get only the high quality audio, the wave files. That's the only format that we give to the doctors and the clinics that are using it for therapy. Zach, do we have maybe a last question? And then we'll show the trailer one more time and say goodbye.
Was wondering, is this music good for sleep and or studying?
So the question was, is it good for sleep or for studying? You know, it's interesting. The studies that we looked at indicate that 40 hertz is beneficial for focus and concentration. And so, as Dr. Gold mentioned, it would be good to listen to this music just before you go to study, and then study with silence, or you could put the music in the background. And for sleep, remember, do not use it during sleep, and do not use this music of 40 hertz just before sleep. It's the wrong type of music. You need to use that music, the 40 hertz music, 3 hours before your sleep time, and then it will have a positive impact on your sleep. That's based on the studies that we looked at. And
we actually have other music on our catalog specifically for sleep, where we go into from alpha theta, and delta. So we have, if you look at our categories, we have sleep solutions also. Just for sleep, we would recommend those.
Yes. If you go, I'm going to share with you a screen for real quick. If you go on Metta Mindfulness Music, the second from the left, the gold circle on top, it says Sleep Solution. And if you click on it, you get all those albums that have, some of them have binaural beats that slows the brain down to delta waves, which is the deep sleep brainwave. So, let me thank Dr. Andrew Crane and Dr. Richard Gold for being with us. Thank you so much. Please be well. Enjoy harmony and beauty. And we look forward, Andy, to collaborate with you in the future on new innovative music. And please keep the good, beautiful work you're doing with BYU singers.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be here.
Thank you. Before we close, we're going to thank our producer, Zach, that helped us put all this thing together. And Zach, if you'd like, let's watch the 6 minutes of the album trailer, and then we'll end this live stream. And we'll be in touch through email, through the internet. And please be safe, be healthy. Be positive, think positive thoughts, and contribute to harmony and beauty all around you. My name is Yuval Ron. I'm a composer visiting here at Brigham Young University for recording a world premiere piece that I composed to work with sound therapy called 40 Hertz. And that tone, that vibration of 40 Hertz have been shown to improve cognition in the brain, to clear the memory pathways from plaque, and improving concentration and healing from brain trauma, all kinds of health benefits. I must tell you, this is a very moving moment for me. This is the very first time that I heard anybody sing this. This is the world premiere moment for me to hear it. And just the first chord, the first measure, when you start singing, I felt my heart was just vibrating. And the way you sang it, all the dynamics and the feeling is just the way I envisioned it. These words that you are singing were actually spoken by Moses when his sister Miriam was very sick. He says literally, please heal her. This first movement is not about heal me. The whole piece is called Heal Me. The second movement and the third movement are about heal me, heal me. The first movement is about Moses saying, heal her. That's why the word la, refa na la is in Hebrew for her. So heal, please God, heal her. So each time you sing the na, feel this love of Moses to Miriam. when you sing Hashem, it's a substitute for the actual sound in the Bible that is written, but nobody knows how to pronounce it. And you say, instead of saying the name, you say the sacred name, which is one step removed, because saying the name itself, touching the name. So when you sing it, it has to have a meaning. It has to, it's the divine name. So I'm working with the choir recording, which is in the blue. You can see it here. And then the red is a layer of double bass section playing the frequency of 40 Hertz. You can hear it right here. That's the 40 Hertz. And so in the recording studio, I added that tone, the bass tone, together with the singers. And then we have the green layers of binaural beats, which creating a third layer of 40 Hertz in the brain.